A macrobiotic chef requires an impressive repertoire of skills from blanching to pressure cooking and even tempura. Mastering so many techniques, as well as the philosophy, takes time and commitment. However, a true believer in macrobiotics is always ready to step up to the plate.
It's an exercise in mindfulness. So as you go through your kitchen and through your ingredients, you need to really ask your question, is this going to support my long-term health? Is this going to give me freedom from disease? Because what we really want is a life of relative freedom from disease.
Although macrobiotic cooking is often misconstrued as bland, unexciting and even downright dull, in the hands of a talented chef, meals are actually quite flavourful. Some of the flavouring agents used in macrobiotic cooking are quite different from the seasonings found in the everyday spice rack.
Good quality, sea salt, condiments, some of the macrobiotic condiments that use things like shiso leaves and various condiments like that, gomasio, which is sesame salt, or sea vegetables.
Many macrobiotic condiments and mainstays can seem strange at first to the new converts. But when one considers the benefits, such as interesting flavours and the high mineral values of such foods as sea salt and nori, the sea vegetable we usually associate with sushi, it's slightly easier to make the transition. Perhaps less familiar to the Western diner is a Japanese condiment well known to the macrobiotic enthusiast, gomasio.
Gomasio is a Japanese word for toasted sesame seeds, hand ground with sea salt in a ratio of, say, 18:1, 18 being sesame seeds. And so it's our, call it macrobiotic salt.
Seasonings aren't the only adjustment made in macrobiotic meal preparation. For natives of a temperate climate, Michio Kushi outlined a standard diet that was to be made up of 50 to 60% whole grains, 5 to 10% soups, 20 to 25% vegetables, and 5 to 10% beans and sea vegetables. He considered foods such as nuts and seeds, lean fish and seasonal fruit to be supplementary foods that should be eaten only occasionally.
And it was, a strict diet, brown rice, miso soup, which is quite rigid.
I think that's part of the institutionalization of macrobiotics. That's the dark side of macrobiotics, where people will tell you that this is what you've got to do.
While Kushi's food circle is still a valued guideline, today's macrobiotic chefs adopt a much more flexible, individualized approach in planning macrobiotic menus.
So things like raw food can be macrobiotic if the macrobiotic principles are applied. Gluten-free, vegetarian, vegan, fish can all be considered macrobiotic when the basic philosophies or principles of macrobiotics are applied to help someone reach a goal that they have.
When people think of whole grains, typically it's brown rice, maybe couscous. Some people are starting to cook with quinoa, but there's a long list of whole grains which are very high in protein, very high in fiber, and crammed with different vitamins and minerals. And they're ones that people aren't aware of, such as millet and barley and rye and buckwheat.
Whole grain brown rice is a macrobiotic mainstay valued for its high B vitamin and fibre content, as well as its digestibility. Its carbohydrates break down slowly, unlike those in refined white rice, pasta or bread made with white flour.
The whole grains are very versatile. They can be stored over long periods of time, so you could cook up a big batch and keep them in your fridge for a week. And you would use them as you would use white rice or pasta.
Nori is served in many ways, including as a condiment to bring out the flavour of other dishes. Soy sauce and a hint of ginger juice can make it a specially flavourful way to obtain calcium, minerals and even protein.
Some of the more unusual items on a macrobiotic shopping list would be the dark leafy greens, such as kale and collard greens and mustard greens, dandelion greens, and also the sea vegetables. Kombu and wakame. Most Americans are used to nori. That's probably the one they're most familiar with, nori, which is what sushi is rolled in.
Lightly blanching greens helps preserve their colour and vitamins, and adding a sauce tempers their strong flavour. One particularly savoury sauce can be made from walnuts and fresh miso. Soups are a popular way to incorporate miso into a macrobiotic menu, but it's important to be aware of the salt content.
It's a very salty dish, which is very yin and very expansive, but then also with the root vegetables like the daikon radish, which is a very yang vegetable, it's very contractive too, so it is a good example of a balanced system.
Macrobiotic cooks attribute many healing qualities to miso that includes benefits for the digestive tract. Some macrobiotic aficionados believe the microorganisms and enzymes contained in miso aid digestion and destroy pathogenic bacteria in the digestive tract. They also claim that this unusual food can lower cholesterol and blood pressure and increase the alkalinity of the blood. Because cancer cells are known to thrive in an acidic environment, there are those macrobiotic enthusiasts who have drawn the conclusion that miso can prevent cancer. But the fact is, there's simply no scientific evidence to prove it. While macrobiotics does include less fatty varieties of fish as occasional protein sources, beans also provide protein of a high biological value when combined with certain other foods like corn, rice and other grains. Beans can also be combined with soy foods such as tempeh to enhance both flavour and protein content. Macrobiotic chefs often include such varieties as azuki and anasazi beans to introduce different flavours. Mixing a brightly coloured steamed vegetable such as butternut squash with lightly sautéed corn and rutabaga adds appetising textures, colours, vitamins and flavours that meld well together. Finally, a pickled food offers naturally beneficial acidophilus and lactobacillus bacteria, as well as a nice flavour contrast to fill the plate and excite the palate. Though the macrobiotic diet tends to be low in fat, it's obvious that with a creative chef in the kitchen, there's little danger of leaving the table hungry. It's obvious that Cauchy's rigid percentages have fallen by the wayside over the years. But the macrobiotic principles for making wise food choices continue to be willingly embraced by the macrobiotic community. Because social interaction is central to Cauchy's concept of an environment that promotes health, people of the macrobiotic persuasion tend to dine together frequently. Of course, that may also be due to the idiosyncrasies of macrobiotic meal planning and preparation. Either way, while the food choices are admittedly somewhat limited, in the hands of a talented macrobiotic chef, the opportunities for creative presentation are endless.
With macrobiotics, it's all about living in harmony with your environment.
Someone can go in and go, wow, this is good.
Though Michio Cauchy wrote a book entitled The Cancer Prevention Diet that detailed his many lifestyle and dietary recommendations, his wife and teaching partner Aveline, his daughter and even Cauchy himself all contracted the dreaded disease. Though tragically his wife and daughter succumbed to their illnesses, Cauchy is a cancer survivor who continues to teach.
And I think that what we do is we teach best what we most need to learn. And it's not all about diet. I found that in the Cauchy family's case, these were very hard-working people. My feeling was that they were very intense. Everything had to be done with that precision that is characteristic of the Japanese people.
Teachers are human, and many times when you're the leader of a movement like this, in order to do what Michio has done in his lifetime, spreading natural foods in the way that he has, he can't live a balanced life.
Aveline Cauchy in particular hinted in a letter to the macrobiotic community that she felt her stubborn nature was a major challenge for her in her own attempts to live in a balanced way.
They were bringing something, their mission, to the world, and they sacrificed in order to do that. And one of the things that caught up with them was getting cancer in their body because they weren't able to live a balanced life.
With macrobiotics, it's all about living in harmony with your environment. So it's about considering all aspects of life and incorporating them into each individual.
It really gets down to, I think, as we go through life, being highly aware of when we make the bad choices. Set our intention to change those habits and groove in those habits that are good, that will eventually become a source of great joy and freedom from disease.
Michio Cauchy has met with many international leaders and presented lectures about the benefits of macrobiotics to thousands of health professionals. A permanent collection of his memorabilia is housed at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C.
One of the best things that Kushi did for macrobiotics was adapt it to make it more modern. He definitely kept the fundamentals of macrobiotics, but really touted how flexible it can be and how it can fit into just about anybody's life fairly easily.
At the age of 80, Michio Kushi remains focused on his life's mission of achieving world peace. Today, his macrobiotic philosophy has evolved into a unique synthesis of Eastern and Western influences.
Really, my dream for macrobiotics is that the basic principles be applied to people's lives and people start to think for themselves around food and bring back their love of natural foods.
Macrobiotics is one of those nutritional theories, one of those rare nutritional theories that has stood the test of time. In our era of fad diets, it's really hard to say that.
And at this point, after doing it for 10 years, my personal dream is to teach people who will teach people and who will provide beautifully catered food and open restaurants that someone can go in and go, wow, this is good, instead of just like, oh, this is healthy for me.
Although a macrobiotic diet has not yet been conclusively proven to prevent or cure disease, the philosophy behind it certainly provides plenty of food for thought. It's difficult to ignore the convincing testimonials offered by so many healthy cancer survivors and beautiful celebrities. Hopefully more funding for clinical research trials is on the horizon, so we can find out just what it is about this diet that seems to be helping so many people in so many different ways. And if we can put an end to war just by making a few changes at the dinner table, what more could we possibly want?